Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming back. For those of you that were with us for the introduction, you should be at this session if you are teaching grades 5, 8, or high school. We're going to be talking about science and technology engineering. I'm here with Kevin Froten. He is the project manager for Cognia, which is MCAS and MCAS-Alt contractor. And I'm also joined by our teacher consultants who will be answering questions at the end. So before we talk about the features of the science and technology engineering, I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. With so many people on the slideshow, it's kind of hard to answer every question that you're thinking of because you're thinking of it before I get to it. So we're going to wait till the end. Kevin is going to show us how to put these together in forms and graphs. But if you need to put your question in the question and answer so you don't forget it, that's fine. But just know we're not going to answer that question until the end. That way we can keep going. People aren't sitting and waiting for one of us to answer it, and then you lose track of what we're talking about. Because even though science and technology is easy to do as a classroom teacher, it's confusing to explain because there's a few moving parts. So I hope you stay with me till the end and we'll get your questions answered. So again, welcome. Thank you for your timeliness, and let's get started. We're going to talk about the unique features of the science and tech engineering. Core idea is something we're going to talk about a lot, and it's based on the discipline. So each discipline, and we'll talk about what those disciplines are, has a core idea, and it has several core ideas. So that's important for you to know. What these core idea, what this does for you is it encourages your students to have multiple instructional approaches. You're going to do different types of investigations and using different entry points. So it's not like any of the other sessions that you have gone to. This allows you to teach a cohesive unit. Instead of doing one skill for 8 different dates, you can teach a cohesive unit of science. So it works out so much better for the teaching aspect of it. Plus, it will also assist in doing cross-curriculum. So if you're teaching new vocabulary within your science, you can use that in the ELA piece. If you're writing a claim or a presentation and helping the students show their opinion, you can use that for the writing. So this really encourages multiple entry points or access skills within a single strand. It also includes what we are calling science practices. Well, not us, the people who developed this whole next generation science units. They use science practices, and these science practices are actually outcomes to be learned. They promote engagement in the science inquiry as well as engineering design skills. So as we go along and as you do a unit, you will be helping the students to understand what these science practices are and how to do them. So here is an excellent graphic for you. These are all these science practices. So these science practices are numbered because we're going to ask you to do 3 different ones, but there is no order to them. They intentionally overlap and interconnect. So as you can see, it's almost like a spider web in the back. You can go from developing a model to obtaining information to asking questions. So we'll go through each of these science practices, but just keep this in mind, even though we're going to show it to you individually with the numbers. So These science practices are under each group. So we have investigating and questioning group. Under that, there's a practice called asking questions and defining problems, and then planning and carrying out investigations. So those are two practices under that first group. The next group is mathematics and data group. So we have using mathematical and computational thinking, and then analyzing and interpreting data. That's under the mathematical group. The next group is called evidence, modeling, and reasoning. Under this one, you'll see that there's developing and using a model, constructing explanations and designing solutions, engaging in argument from evidence, and obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. So it sounds really highfalutin. You're thinking, oh no, my student can't do this. But really, we break it down, we give you examples, and your student can do this. So for all grades, 5, 8 in high school, you're going to need to do one MCAS-Alt skill survey for all. So you just need to do it once, but you're going to do all 8 practices. And Kevin will show you what that looks like. I'll show you a sample, but Kevin will go in and show you what you need to do. So here's one of those highlightable moments. Remember the number 3. You're going to have a total of 3 entry points or access skills for each core idea. Okay. Each entry point or access skill will reflect a different science practice. So there will be a total of, you guessed it, 3 science practices. Each summary from each activity is going to be documented on a summary sheet. So you'll have a total of 3 summary sheets. Each activity that you're doing with your student is going to reflect that science practice, which is listed as an entry point. So you're going to have 3 pieces of evidence that are going to go along with that corresponding summary sheets. So remember that number, 3. 3 is the magic number. Science is also the only content area that is going to allow you to collect during the current school year and the previous school year. Now, if you're here because you're new and you just did the introduction, don't worry about it. Just focus on this year. If you're just wanted a refresher, just a reminder that yes, you could have started it last year and you're going to finish it this year. So the skill survey, I told you you're going to do it one time, but in all 8 practices. You need to check the boxes that the student can perform at least sometimes independently. They may need some support sometimes. Then you're going to select entry points for assessment in the practice at the highest grade span. And so you're going to, as you check these off, and I'll show you an example in a moment, there is different grade span. So say you're doing grade 8, so your grade span would be 6 to 8. In some areas, your student may be able to do something in 6 to 8, but in other practices, they may be down at 3 to 5 or even the K to 2. So it depends on the skill, the practice that you're looking at, and it depends on your student's level. So you're always going to try for the highest grade span, but it's going to be okay if you have different grade spans as a result of the skill survey. If your student's working at access skills, you're going to click off the box that says, my student cannot perform any skills in this science practice. So this is what just one of the skill surveys look like. This is science practice 3. Remember, I said there's 8 of them. So in this case, If you started at 9 to 12, you can go back to 6 to 8, 3 to 5, or pre-K to 2. And you can see there that there are examples next to the different levels. So for pre-K to 2, the display data, it says, for example, one-word descriptors, number, or tally of yes or no observations, visually using a simple graph or picture to show information on a topic. So how many of our students have been graphing the weather since they were like 5? Think about that. That's the kind of thing we're looking for. So can your student do something like that? Then they are able to display data. Okay. And just like our just like the resource guide and the forms and graphs, as well as the skill survey, are all broken down into those grade bands. So pre-K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and then high school. And that's how you'll see the resource guide. And when Kevin shows you the forms and graphs online, you'll see that the same is true for that. I also have an example to show you. Access skills for science, though, has their very own section, and that's at the beginning of each discipline. Because science is so different and we have the different practices, it's not at the lowest grade level like it is for the other content areas. So for science, if you're working at access skills, you're going to find it in its very own section. And remember, we talked about each discipline has a core idea. And why that's important is because each core idea, we have a list of related topics. So we want you to think about the topics that you want to teach. So here's what the resource guide looks like. And this would be the paper version. So you can see there's our 3 different groupings on the top. Remember, we went through those. And then we have the core idea, very important because you keep that one core idea for each of the disciplines. And then we have underneath each of these groupings, you see the numbers. There's 4, 5, 3. You can only see a few of them, but those are the science practices. Those are the things you're going to help the students develop. Underneath each of those practices, we've embedded the entry points for you to use, as well as access skills. So depending on the unit that you decide to do, you have these entry points to choose from. There's the entry point. And again, you can choose one from each grouping if that works for you. And here's a picture of the form and graph, and this is just a screenshot, so Kevin will show you the real thing, but you can see up here the different tabs, and they're in the grade spans. You can see how each underneath those radio buttons, depending on the practice that you're using. And then Access Skill has its very own tab in here that you can get to. So we'll look at that a little more carefully at the end. And there's your 3 different groups. So if you wanted to pick one from each group, then you would be assured of having 3 different practices. But if you have a student that maybe can't do asking questions, then you can use different practices within. Remember that this last reasoning, evidence and reasoning had like 3 different practices under there. So you have to do what's best for your student. So this is specific to grades 5 and 8. So all of those things we said were true. You have to have one skill survey, but as grades 5 or 8 teacher, you are going to choose 3 of the 4 disciplines that you see here. So you can choose earth and space, physical science, life science, tech engineering. So just 3 of those. My suggestion is you start thinking about what you want to start with. Some may overlap, but if you're new, you might just want to stick to one or go to your content person. Maybe you have somebody, a colleague in general ed that's teaching science. Is there some way that you can connect with that teacher and maybe join forces and teach together? So the first thing you're going to do is pick a core idea. And the best thing you can do is once you think about those core ideas is click right there, and Kevin will show you where this is. You're going to view the topics because there's a lot of different topics under each core idea. So in this case, this is a topic for the core idea, molecules to organism, and this is for life science. So you take a look and you say, is there something here I could do with my kids? It's still nice out if you're going to start, if you wanted to do life science, you could do plants and animals. Perhaps you could go outside, maybe life cycles for plants and animals. But look at these, see what interests you, because whatever interests you is going to make them excited about it. So just make sure that you look at these carefully before you choose the core idea you want to do. And then, like I said, you can choose one entry point or access skill from each of those groups, or you just can choose 3 different science practices. That's up to you. Then you're going to choose those 3 pieces of primary evidence, and you want to make sure that they relate to that entry point. So if you said you were doing a model, perhaps you were labeling a model, and that's what you chose for your entry point, then that's what you want your evidence to reflect. So look at the entry point, look at the science practice that it's under, and then make sure that what you're doing documents that practice. Okay? Access skills are still going to be addressed during a standards-based activity, and you can include 2 examples of self-evaluation. They can be a separate paper, they can be on the summary sheet, which we'll show you, but you want to include at least 2 examples. Oop, we got extra one there. Not last, but here is a sample of the requirements of one core idea. So remember I said 3 is the magic number here. So we have 3 summary sheets, and corresponding to those 3 summary sheets is the evidence. The evidence is going to reflect 3 different practices, and it's also going to reflect the entry point that you chose. Okay, so 3 is for each core idea. So you're going to have in grades 5 and 8, you'll have 3 different disciplines. So you'll have 3 core ideas, and each of those core ideas is right here. 3 summary sheets, 3 corresponding pieces of evidence, 3 different science practices. Okay. And here's what the summary sheet looks like. It has a place for your name, all of the information that we required on the other pieces of evidence, right? It's going to summarize the percentage of accuracy and independence. You're going to tell us how this activity related to that practice. What did you do? Maybe you're going to set it up. Maybe you did an investigation first, and this is a follow-up to the investigation. And so you're going to let us know how that, why that connects. So the program will fill this all out for you. The entry point will be, or access skill will be put in for you by the program, and you can't change it. And we're not adding any criteria. Remember our measurable outcome, we added criteria to it. We're not adding any criteria to this. It's going to be the entry point or access skill, just the way it comes out of the resource guide. That's what that looks like, and it's just one summary sheet. And this is a great check for you. this is the strand cover sheet, and every strand has its own cover sheet. So you're going to fill this all out. And then this bottom section here is going to help you check what you've done. Make sure you have exactly what you need. So you're going to look at this strand cover sheet and you're going to say, do I have 3 summary sheets? Oops, sorry. And then you'll look down below and you'll see those descriptions in there so you will know if you had them. Do I have 3 different practices? Well, you'll look down and see, are there 3 different numbers? This is so important that you check that. If you have 113 or 535, you don't have 3 different numbers. So please be very careful in checking that. Do you have 3 pieces of evidence? There should be one for each summary sheet, right? And lastly, do you have at least 2 self-evaluations? And so it's a nice little check to make sure you've done all you needed to do. So high school is a little different. So I'm going to show you that. In high school, you still have to do the skill survey. Remember, everything you put in that binder is going to have a skill survey. For high school, you choose one discipline, either biology or introductory physics, one or the other, not both, just one. You can't mix and match. And guess what you're going to do? Choose 3 different core ideas for that discipline. So if you pick introductory physics, you're going to have 3 core ideas. If I choose biology, 3 core ideas. For each core idea, remember we talked about this, each core idea, you're going to have 3 entry points or access skills. Same thing as we just talked about. You're going to have 3 summary sheets. You're going to complete those summary sheets. We just looked at what each summary sheet requires. Then you're going to have those 3 pieces of evidence, either for entry points or access skills. They're going to go with those corresponding summary sheets. And your work can be work samples. Everything that we talked about on on Tuesday, we talked about the primary evidence. That's the same kind of thing. You want work samples that show the end product. You can use photos. You can use a 3-minute video. Okay, so the same evidence that we've been talking about, you can use here. But you're going to have how many pieces of evidence? I can hear you all yelling at me. 3 pieces of evidence. And don't forget to include a minimum of 2 pieces of self-evaluation. If you want to put it on that summary sheet, you can, or it can be separate. So for high school, here is the introductory physics. Here's 4 core ideas. That's all they have. You're going to choose 3 of those. And again, the topics will be available for you to look at. These are a little bit at a higher level because they're at a high school level, but just know that you can also spiral back to a lower grade span if you need to. You're going to fill out that skill survey and you're going to see where your student came out. You're always going to use that highest grade span, okay, for that student. But look at the entry points before you just jump down to the lowest one. So on the left, you'll see the entry point. On the right, it's how it could look if this is something you wanted to do. So this particular core idea, I'm going to show you 3 core ideas because it's introductory physics. This core idea is for motion and stability. And it says brainstorm a list of items that need protection from collision. Select one together and scribe the student's ideas for criteria and constraints. So you can look these over a little more carefully, different things that the students came up with that need protection from collision. And then you are able to scribe their ideas and then talk about the criteria for how we might use those constraints. The next core idea is energy. Remember, we're still in physics, but the next core idea is energy. And this is science practice 3, analyzing and interpreting data. The entry point is to analyze data from a table or graph that includes temperatures of two substances in thermal contact over time. What could this look like? Well, students could make observations of a system where a small cup of water is placed inside a larger cup of hot water, maybe like your Dunkin' Donuts cup. They measure the temperature at least twice. They describe what they see. And this is where you might want to develop some sentence frames or stems that would help them understand what they're looking at. But remember, you're teaching this and working hands-on with all of these things. So it's much more engaging for our students. So here's the third core idea. And I'm only giving you one science practice for one core idea. You're going to do three practices for each core idea. This core idea is waves and their application. The entry point is to construct a model to explain the behavior of a wave. What it could look like is using a slinky to demonstrate the transverse waves resonance as well as the longitudinal wave resonance. And I hope you understood that. But here is all of the material that you can use. And also this is found at, you can Google this and get all the instructions if it's something that interests you for your class. So that was introductory physics. I showed you an example of each core idea. I only showed you one practice for each core idea. So let's take a quick look at biology. And biology, again, has 4 core ideas, and you only have to choose 3 of those. Same idea, I'm going to show you 3 core ideas, one practice as an example, just so you get a feel for it. And again, this is at a higher level. If your student needs to go down, you can go down. But the entry point is to construct an explanation to describe the role of producers, consumers, and decomposers in an ecosystem based on a variety of sources. And the kids seem to love this one. What it could look like is using an energy or trophic level pyramid to help explain the roles of producers, consumers, and decomposers by showing where they are located on the pyramid. So this is a good one to, you can have the pictures, they can help to pick those, what they would put at each level. And you can see at the bottom, the teacher left blanks for them to help them understand this process. Remember that this is going to be recorded. You can go back and take your time and read these and look at them a little more carefully. I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but you can definitely go back and look at them. So the next core idea for this one is heredity. And this is science practice 3. And the entry point is to analyze data from a Punnett square or pedigree to determine the inheritance pattern of a particular trait. So what it could look like is using information about dominant and recessive forms of traits to create a Punnett square that predicts the genotypes and phenotypes of offsprings. So for example, height would be the capital T is dominant for a tall trait, and the lowercase t is recessive for a short trait. If a short plant is crossed with a hybrid tall plant, what is the likelihood that the offspring will be short? This is also a good one that you could use for an investigation. But here's the T-chart, here's the Punnett square, and the kids always seem to enjoy that. And this is the last core idea. It's biological evolution. The science practice is practice 2, planning and carrying out investigation. Now, just to be clear, 99% of your kids are not going to be able to plan an investigation, but they can carry out the investigation with your assistance. And learn how to observe things. So just bear that in mind. So the entry point is to select or create the appropriate table or organizer to collect data from an investigation of a natural selection. So the students can watch a video about natural selection. And one thing about science is there's a lot of simulations, there's a lot of videos out there, good videos, science videos that you can use with the students, show them what they're looking for, be able to stop the video to talk about it. So bear that in mind when you're doing your investigations. So, for example, an investigation involving the population of frogs living in a pond where the water gets darker each year over a period of 4 years. Students can create a table showing what happened to the number of light and dark colored frogs in the pond over time. So these are observations. It's a very simple table, and they've filled it out, and at the same time learned something they might not have known before they watched this video. I just want to show you how the complexity will decrease if you need to go to a different level. So say this is the same exact practice. Okay, this is practice 3. But if you started in grade 6 to 8, you can analyze and interpret data to make sense of the process of natural selection in a plant or animal population. But I can also go down to 3 to 5 within that same practice 3. Draw a conclusion based on evidence from an investigation. The kids love the investigations about features of animals that enable them to survive in their habitat. For example, thick fur in a cold climate, webbed feet in frogs, protective coloration. That's grades 3 to 5. But what if I have to go step down for some of my kids? Maybe some of my kids can do 3 to 5, but maybe some of my students have to come down a bit. They can display data using a simple graph or pictures, when we talked about that, to show living things in a local habitat. For example, your schoolyard, maybe at home in the backyard, or watching a simulation or watching something on a YouTube for the habitat. So there's a lot of great information out there available for you. So we want to talk about the tools that we have to support you and the development of a cohesive unit. First of all, the next thing I'm going to talk about are how you can get units that are already created. These are optional, and it may be a little overwhelming at first. We have worked over the summer with for 2 years now with groups of special ed teachers, a lot of them separate classrooms, substantially separate rooms that they're doing science for. We have taken these units and we have spent the time looking at what they would want in a general ed classroom and then being able to modify to meet our students' needs. What's nice about these units is that they have all the material, they have all the videos, everything you need is within these units. It is free. Sometimes they ask for your email, but there is no cost to it. And we worked very closely with our science people, and they have helped us to align the videos, or excuse me, align the curriculum with our core ideas. So I think you've probably heard there is a very big push to have high quality instructional material for all our students. So that's what we're looking at here, is high quality instructional material. And these are the units that have been vetted. They have planning guides that are developed, and all the resources can be found on the Forms and Graphs program, as well as in our educator material. So remember I talked about how the core idea, each one had their own list of things of topics. So in this case, for physical science, for the core idea of matter and its interactions, there is a long list here of things that you could do. over here on the right, these are all high quality units that you can use. Some of them are lower grades, which might work out well. This sell garbage one, we did this for the 2 years, the 2 summer programs that we did. It's a lot of fun. The kids really love it, and garbage is everywhere. There isn't anywhere you can go without finding garbage. So I'll show you a few things we took from that, but you can see here the opportunities you have to look at those. It would take some modifying, and you might want to work with some other teachers to kind of maybe do it all together, but it's all there for you if you want to give it a shot. And this is just talking about the high quality science units, and they're anchored in that scientific phenomena. And the phenomena, which used to freak me out a little bit when they were saying that, I was like, what is that? It's just an observable event or a driving question related to that core idea. And when we did the garbage unit, we had our driving question, which I'll show you in a moment. And I just like this quote there. Impactful science teaching happens when we start in the lives of children and empower them to make sense of the world and their own voice. I think kids are so excited about science. They get to actually do things and watch things happening. And the more excited you are, the more excited they'll be. We talked about like maybe putting on a lab coat or the safety goggles and kind of making it a big deal. Like we're going to do the science, it's time for science, and making it special and fun and engaging for them. So what happens to our garbage? This is the unit that we've done now 2 years in a row, and it's been very exciting for everybody involved about the different ways in which, no matter what level your student is on, how they can access the different levels of this unit. So how would you choose to introduce it? So how we did it, one method is to get them engaged in the topic right away, exploring the materials. So you're using all the senses, videos, demonstrations, you can do your own. Readings, you can do readings with pictures, guided investigations, and that notice and wonder. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Those are great observations that we can help students, get that information out of them. I wonder. Same kind of thing, modeling. So here is a unit from the garbage unit. Here is, excuse me, a lesson from the garbage unit. And I know it's hard to see, so I made it a little bit bigger. So this one talks about, do garbage materials change in a landfill? And we look at a video of a landfill. We created our own landfill bottle systems. We did a lot of hands-on things with the students, but this is just one lesson. And you can see here, it tells you how many class periods, different things to do, but it's all up to you how much time you want to spend on it, what you want to do or don't want to do. So how can your student interact with the phenomenon? Let's think about that for a minute. Think about the students that you're working with. I know it's a little early in the year. You're maybe still getting used to some of your students, but are they able to speak? Do they use a device? Can they write or keyboard? Are they able to point to symbols? Can they draw? Do they love to draw? You can always create those sentence stems that I talked about. And you can use the sentence stems along with the visuals if that helps. And I'll show you some examples in a moment. And definitely use of media. So here's an example of one that one of our teachers developed for her students. What we did to start this whole unit was we took garbage and we put it on a plastic tablecloth for everyone to see. Now, first of all, you're saying, I am not putting garbage out with my kids. You're very selective about the garbage you're putting in. You're not going to the cafeteria and taking all that. So you're kind of figuring out like orange peels and plastic spoon and some of that kind of thing that you don't mind. And you know your kids, if they can't be near garbage or near it without, touching or putting it in their mouth, then you need to do things a little differently. But when you put this out there, you can ask the students, what do they notice? What do they smell? What do they see? You can allow students to use tongs or gloves for those that are have that sensory issue. There's a lot of different ways that they can look at garbage, but garbage is everywhere. It's in our classroom, it's at home, it's on the streets. So it's everywhere. So it's one of those units that everybody can relate to. The other thing we did is we developed these models. Now, the model that, because we had such a short time, was done outside of our 4 days and brought in, but we developed an open system and a closed system. And the measurable outcome on this was to illustrate or develop a model to show or explain phase changes between gas, liquids, and solids. So here was the evidence. And then the students had to draw, or they could tell the teacher what to put on it. We did get to go to a classroom of a teacher who was doing it with her students, and she was passing the bottle around, and the kids had the template of the bottle, and they got to use different colors. And then the teacher or the para would ask, what is that? And it would be the dirt. And so it was very interesting to watch, and the kids were very engaged in this. Here's another one. This is science practice 3. The question asked is, do garbage materials change in a landfill? Remember, we saw that as one of the lesson plans. So we're going to make those predictions. When we first saw those, we can ask those questions. And it's an easy yes or no. Why do you think it is? And then we're going to compare that observation at the end. So this is just some different things that were written. The weight of the open system went down a little bit. And you can see that's in the teacher's handwriting. But these are things we're going to help them observe. You have little scales and you can weigh them before and after. It's quite interesting to watch, and it's fun. This is number 7. This is called evidence, reasoning, and modeling, right? We're doing use scientific evidence in support of an argument about how the properties of material remain the same when broken into smaller pieces. So who doesn't like crushing something? You can crush a cookie, a cracker, a can. So one of the teachers created this, and she talked about different properties, and that was also a vocabulary list and had pictures that talked about what properties could be, color, texture, talked about reflectivity, how does it change? And so she would help them develop this vocabulary so that when the nice Oreo cookie turned into crumbs, it could talk about what happened to it. Did it stay the same? Does it weigh the same? It was a very good one. And this is one from a while ago, one of our teachers did, again, analyzing and interpreting data, and they broke things. But this came under display data using pictures to show how the properties of the material remain the same when broken into smaller pieces. In this case, they broke chalk, egg carton, and cut a cup. And then they weighed them before and they weighed them after to see if they were the same. So just some examples and some ideas of what can be done. That is my contact information. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, and then we got plenty of time to answer your questions. Okay, take it away, Kev.
And thank you, Deb. So welcome back to everybody that joined us earlier. So I'm going to jump into the forms and graphs program that we started to build out yesterday, kind of showed you how to use it if you were with us yesterday, if you're coming back from the core concept session last week. So give me just a second, I'll transfer my screen over and we can start to see how to do the science in the forms and graphs. So one moment. So here we are back on the login screen, and I won't go into kind of the building everything up about creating an account. So if you're new to the whole process and you didn't come to the core concepts, just make sure you go back and watch that when the recording is ready to go, because that will show you kind of the building blocks to get up, to create an account, getting students in there and to get the ball rolling. But to show you science, I'm just going to log in to my account, ignore kind of these other students I have in here for now. I'll come and show you why I have these to show you after we do the basics. But let's pop back into our sample from yesterday that we were working on for Alex Keaton, grade 5. And you'll remember there's this link between the skill survey and the strands. So it will not let you create a strand. You can't get to those cover sheets until you do the related skill survey. Previously, I showed you how to do it wrong, of how it'll guide you to not let you create a strand until you've done the skill survey, but today we'll go the proper way. So start with your skill survey. Here's one we were working on yesterday, our math one. So to add another skill survey, remember this red bar, most of the functions and links to other pages are in this red bar. Add a new one. The good news and bad news, there's only one science skill survey. So notice how the others are sort of, there's an ELA language, an ELA reading, then different ones for math. There's only one generic one, as Deb mentioned, for science. The good news is you only have to do it once. So even though at grade 5, you're going to do 3 different strands, say in earth and space, a life and physical, you don't have to do this 3 times, you just have to do it once. That's the good news. The bad news is it's a lot longer than the other ones. So they're based on the practices. Notice it's not about earth and space or life science. They're just sort of skill-based tasks based on these 8 different practices. And you can see here's the practice number 1. So we'll just quickly give it a date. Oops. And then you just want to work this form top to bottom. So before you had to give in most of the other skill surveys, it's about making a selection for every single line. You have to make a judgment. How independently can the student do it? So now it's a little bit different here, where you're just checking off the skills that most of the time the student could likely do somewhat independently. So it makes sense to just sort of start around whatever grade you're at and either go up or down. Most of the time you're starting at a grade and then going down to the lower grades. But you're just looking and checking off. The key is each one of the 8 practices has to have at least one box checked off. So somewhere between pre-K and high school, one of these needs to be checked off. You might be asking, what if I have a student who just cannot do any of them? These are all too high. Even the lowest at pre-K is just something that's beyond the capabilities of your student, which you might find with access skills. And even just some of the practices that just don't lend themselves to what the student is able to do. Down at the bottom of each of these, so this is still practice 2, there is this catch-all: my student cannot perform any of the skills in this science practice. So if none of them apply, something still needs to be checked off. So you can always check off that one. So now you're just going to work your way through, making selections for each of the 8. As I mentioned, it is long, but you only do it once. So one and done for this one. Practice 6, practice 7, and then let's say they can't do anything, practice 8. So back at the top, same sort of check. If I missed one and tried to create a strand, it would tell me I didn't complete it. You can save this page, and then every one that you've made a selection will turn green. So if you've got a header that's still gray, you know you didn't check something off in that particular practice type. I think we got them all. We'll create a strand and we'll find out. So we can go back to table of contents, but we can also just pop right into our strand list here. So strand list. ignore the stuff we've got going. We're just going to go right after a science strand. So create a new strand, add a new strand in the red bar. And remember, this is a grade 5 student, so science is available. I'll show you, a question comes up a lot, and there might even be one in the Q&A about, well, what if I want to start collecting grade 4 for next year? And I'll show you, you kind of have to cheat the system a little bit in order to get that to happen. So I'll show you how to handle that now. But for straight up 5-8 and high school student, science will be available. So choose science. And here are the 4 disciplines of science that you can choose from. Remember, you have to choose 3 of the 4. So earth and space, life, physical, and tech engineering. I'll show you one sample of an earth and space. They're all the same. The disciplines work the same. All the forms work the same. It's just about the content that's wrapping around the basics of the form. So we'll do an earth and space. And a fairly stripped down version of the strand cover sheet. So not quite as elaborate as everything else we had. There's no real measurable outcome that's overriding everything. It's just about selecting skills within each of the summary sheets based on 3 different practices, which is the key. But it all begins with selecting the core idea. In earth and space, it will be the unifying core idea. Everything will align to whatever the core idea I select. This link here, this view topics, this is what Deb showed you, those links to some resources and just ideas of what fit into all those core ideas. So if I click this, it'll open up a PDF, and you can see if you do Earth's place in the universe, here are all the topics that relate to that, just so you get an idea of what's appropriate to address, and then some of those links, Earth systems, Earth and human activity. So all of the any of the core ideas that are available will be here with a subset of what it is that feeds into them. So here they are in the dropdown, and now you're going to filter as you go. Notice I can't create any summary sheets yet because I have to select my core idea first. So when I do that, big red button again, use this core idea. Notice there's no learning standards yet because they're tied to my core idea. So once I click use this one, then it'll populate the appropriate learning standards tied to that core idea. And then once I say use this standard, and same as everywhere else, you can open the full resource guide and see all of Earth and space with all the learning standards. But once I do that, now I get the opportunity to create summary sheets. And that's really all there is for the science strand, is a strand cover sheet, and then 3 different summary sheets, each based on a different practice. And that's the requirement for this case, the one strand of Earth and space that we have to do. And then a skill survey kind of overriding all of it. I'm going to quickly just drop in a few basic examples here, just to show you what happens if you decide you want to change your core idea. You can do it, but it comes at a price. So if you had, let's pretend these were all built out. We had 3 different practices. We've got work, we've got data entered in all of these, and then we decide, oh, I don't really want to do Earth's place in the universe. I want to do Earth systems. So if I do that and say, use this core idea, once I've already selected one, it will aggressively tell you that I'll let you do this, but it's going to delete everything that you did. So all of your summary sheets are going to go away, and they are gone. There's no bringing them back. It's deleting them to make room for whatever it is you say you want to do now. So in this case, it'd be Earth systems. So if I click yes, it will delete them. If I click no, no harm done. Everything will stay as it was. But as soon as I click yes, it starts over. So everything I did is gone. I have to select a new learning standard. And then I can start building summary sheets again. Most people don't do that, but just know it will let you change your core idea, but it's going to start you over each time by design, because you can't mix and match. You can't do 2 practices on Earth systems and then decide you want to try to do one on Earth's place. No mixing match. The core idea has to stay the same. So we'll not let you have the opportunity to do 2 different versions in one strand. But with the actual, once you've locked all that in and you want to start doing the summary sheets, new summary sheet, and it'll drop in placeholders. And as we populate, so you don't fill anything out here. This is just showing you, we'll come back to this in a second. You'll see how it populates this information. But you can delete them, or you can go to summary sheet to start working with them. That my description, same as what we looked at the other day, there for you to just write something about them because you'll have three different ones. So if you want to quickly just give yourself a nod to know which is which, you can write in my description. You want to give it a date. And then we get to, so it's not a measurable outcome. Remember, we're just selecting the skill as is. So there's no text box to type in. These look like they're check boxes, and technically they are, but not ones that you can actually click within. You have to use the find entry points here because you have to use the entry point or access skill as written, as found in the resource guide. So you have to pull it in directly. But the actual function of that works like just what we saw the other day in math. I click find entry point. It will start me at my grade 3 to 5 tab. Earth and Space doesn't go up to high school. It ends at grade 8. So that's the highest tab I have available. If it was life science where it links to biology, I would have a high school tab here, but it'll go as high or as low as appropriate for the strand that you're in. But it will always start you. If this was a grade 8, we'd start on 6 to 8, but we're grade 5. So here we are. And remember, you can go up and you can go down. Each of the 8 practices for this grade span are represented here. If there's one that's just appropriate that happens to be at a higher grade level, feel free to go up and grab it from there, or you can go down. If all these are a little too hard and you got to get back down to a pre-K to 2 level, again, all the 8 practices represented for that grade span, all linked to this core idea. You don't have to worry about, am I selecting something that's appropriate? It will not let you go outside of that core idea that it's locked in. And if you're working at access skills, instead of the lowest grade level, it just is at the lowest point. So the leftmost tab, and you'll notice access skills, but again, they get their own page for science because it again represents the full 8 practice types. So once you make a selection, let's say we're going to start with planning and carrying out an investigation at a pre-K to 2. We'll use pictures or drawings to collect observations about the seasons. Grab it, it'll drop it in, it'll check off entry point, and same as before, it knows where it's grabbing stuff from the resource guide, so it'll do that for you. You don't have to worry about it. So all skills come from this find entry point button. Not a whole lot more to do. So just a description of what it is that you're attaching this to. Science, particularly when it's part of a big activity, might need a more healthy description to describe the materials you're using, the approach, the participation of the class, the experiment that you did. So it'll let you write quite a bit here, so feel free to be fairly descriptive. And then self-eval, same. We covered this in core concepts. You could say how the student did it. They chose, they gave thumbs up, they enjoyed it, or the ever popular standalone, and you can just write C attached if you've got that one-off self-eval that you use for everything, and they can circle or bingo dob or do what they want. So no one way to do self-eval. And then the only other thing to do is provide an accuracy and an independence for what it is that you're attaching this to. And then just this last piece reminding you to actually attach the evidence to this summary sheet. We'll save. And now when we go back to our strand cover sheet, you'll notice that one that I just did, it's filled this out for me. So I see that I chose practice 2. I know the date. Here's that little breadcrumb I left for myself about what that sample is. And I mentioned that I had some self-eval to go along with it. So this is a high-level recap of what you got going on for your science descriptions. So that's 1. You lather, rinse, repeat that 2 more times to get 3. And I'll just quickly show you one of these other students I have hanging out here. So for Amelia, go to our strand list. Here's another Earth and Space we did for a different student. So this time we have an Earth place, the learning standard. So this is what you would expect to sort of see. So this would be a complete Earth and Space submission for a grade 5 student. I've got my core idea locked in and then addressing that core idea with 3 different practice types. Notice I've got a 2, a 3, and a 5. Just looking at this, I know I met the distinction to have 3 different practice types. If I had 2, 2, 5, it's a pretty big flag. You don't want to have Two are the same if you're only doing three. You got to have at least three different numbers here in this column. So 2, 3, 5, thumbs up, I'm good to go. And then to print this, same as before, from the strand cover sheet, notice I have print options again. You can just do the cover sheet if you wanted to, but if you print multiple, it'll open a new tab and stitch everything together for you. So here's the cover sheet. Here's my summary sheet 1, my summary sheet 2, summary sheet 3. What about the skill survey, you said? Because it's not required at every previous strands, it would throw this right in here after the strand cover sheet, but it's a big long one and you don't have to do it for every strand. So you wouldn't have to print the skill survey for your earth and space, your life, and your physical. Just one that goes at the front of your science section. So it just gives you the opportunity here to say, you don't need it every time, but if you want to print it, here's a reminder to print it. You can click here and it'll go back and grab the skill survey that you completed and you can print it the one time. We see them, people do tend to put them in before every strand sometimes. So before earth and space, before life, and before physical. No need, just one, just have to do it once. It says, please note only one copy of the survey is needed for the entire content area. So you don't have to do it for every strand because it's not strand specific, it's generic to the practice types. So it covers all of science. So that's the core requirement for science. That's what the kind of run of the mill will look like. High school is sort of the same, just a slight different twist on it. So let's quickly look at a high school just so you get a sense of what that looks like if you're doing grade 9, which can be science only, or 10 and above for high school. And you only have two choices. You can either do biology or physics. So let's look at a sample high school. Same thing. There's a skills survey. It's identical. It's just called bio and introductory physics, but it looks the same. It's just that 8 practices again. It's actually the same skill survey. It just gets a different label on it. But the actual strands are a little bit different. So when you go to add a new strand, oops, get one out. I've already got 3 in here, but let's pretend I didn't. You can go, when you do science, you'll notice these are the only 2 choices you have. And the intent is you can't mix and match. You can do it. You could not do a bio 1, 2, and then all of a sudden decide to do a physics for your third one. You pick one and you stick with it. It has to all be the same discipline for high school. So either bio or physics, not both. You can't mix and match. But you would do 3 different strands, 1, 2, and 3, which will look something like this. Get rid of my fake one. So you'd have a bio 1, 2, and 3. And then the key to remember with high school is everything else is the same. Same strand cover sheet, same requirement for 3 different summary sheets on that strand cover sheet. It's the core ideas you want to make sure. So in this case, I have 4 different to choose from. Each one, so bio 1 needs to be one core idea, and then a different one for bio 2, and a different one for bio 3. So if I do from molecules to organisms on this biology 1, if I go back to my strand list, you'll notice now I'm doing ecosystems on that second biology. And then if I go to my strand list and look at my third, now I've got evolution. So 3 different core ideas. So you don't want 3 bio 1, 2, and 3 all on evolution. That would not meet the requirement. 2 of those are not going to get scored because they're going to be considered duplicates. So you want 3 different core ideas is the key to remember for high school. But everything else is the same way that you pull in a standard, the summary sheets. Do a new one real quick. You'll see it's identical. So just find entry points. But this time we'll get high school that pops up and goes all the way back down to access skills again. Everything else is the same. It's just that you have to stick within one discipline and 3 different core ideas. But everything I showed you for grade 5 is in play here as well. The one little twist I want to show you is, so Deb mentioned, again, if you're new this year, not a whole lot you can do to look back last year, but if you're moving forward, if you've got grade 4 or 7 students and you want to collect over 2 years, how do you do it? Because I'll show you the problem you run into. So you've got Ella next year, who's grade 4, just sitting here. And we go to our strand list. And as you would expect, we've got our language, reading, writing, so our ELA. And then these are the 2 math that are appropriate for a grade 4 student. And then you're like, I'm going to be ahead of the game. I'm going to get some science in here. So I'm going to add a new strand. Uh-oh, there's no science. Because it's filtered by grade, it will stop you. We can't let you mix and match the math for a grade 4 and 5, so it's a hard stop to say, this is a grade 4 student, you shouldn't be doing science. So what you need to do is trick the system a little bit. Remember, this is a whole open system. So you add a student again, select, you put in the student, same as you did the first time. The one switch you do is now you make them a grade 5. So save. Now when I go to my table of contents, make sure you ignore everything about ELA and math. You don't want to do that here. So you're only here to get at that science. Because now it's a grade 5, science shows up. So I can create. It's not going to let me because I didn't do the skills survey, but you can try to, you can start to create for next year. So that's the little trick. Your student list will end up looking something like this, where you've got the real current year for the ELA and math, and then that look ahead year for the same student that you're only putting in there to populate to get at. And the other thing to remember, which you're new, is nothing carries over. So you won't log into this next year and have this grade 5 sitting here still. So you're only putting it in here to get at the forms, to create them, print them, and hang on to them to merge with whatever you're going to do next year as well. Everything gets wiped. We don't carry students forward. We don't carry data forward. Entry points come and go and get modified. So we don't want to mix the old with the new, so it all gets wiped every year. So just make sure you generate it somehow and hang on to it. Either make PDFs and put them on a flash drive and just hang on to everything. Just don't expect it to be there next year, because it will not be. Anything you've done that one little cheat 1 year ahead. So that's what I have for you. I know it's quick again, and just a reminder that it's in the link. I'll put it again in the link in the chat again. All these sessions that we did, so the core concepts we did yesterday, all these, the link, all these coming soons are going to turn into actual links as soon as we can get the posts up for the recordings up on the department's YouTube page once they're ready to go. But here's the science, here's the PowerPoint, and then this coming soon. So you can come back to this and watch all of this again very soon as it's ready. And we'll shoot everybody an email. It'll be in a newsletter when those recordings are up as well. But you can always bookmark the site, and I'll put it in the chat one more time and just check in, and they will be there soon. So I'll give it back to Deb, and she can wrap it up and take any questions that are out and about.
Thank you, Kevin. It's always right on. So let's talk about when we talk about attaching the evidence to the summary sheet, we don't really mean like stapling it, just put it with it, because sometimes we want to make copies of the great work that you all do, and it's really hard if it's stapled, and we don't want to disturb any of your good pieces of evidence. So if you can just put them together but not stapled, and if you're new, also don't use sheet protectors. Even if somebody who has been doing them say, oh yeah, don't. It's very hard for the scores because of the light coming down. It's very hard to read it, and I don't want them taking things out. I don't want them touching your evidence. So no sheet protectors and no staples would be wonderful. The other thing is, someone asked about having a first name and last name. So when you do that MCAS-Alt cover sheet, you give us the student's full name. So unless they're using a nickname, which you want to just let us know that, Alex might go by Bobo or something and wants to write that, just let us know who that is, what the nickname is. But otherwise, they can just write their first name. That's perfectly acceptable. Let me see if I can answer some of these questions for you. I know that the teacher consultants will be will be answering in the background as well. Where can I find the science unit? So Jessica, those were the ones that Kevin just showed you how when you look at the topics, the units are also there. So that was the link that he just put in there for you. If you want to know about entry points and access skills, I think you need to go back to our introduction and really look at that, or go into the educator's manual and see the difference. It's explained there in a lot of detail. If you think your students working on access skills and just working on those developmental milestones and just have emerging pre-symbolic communication, then you should go on October 16th to our access skill session. And you can still sign up for that. So Natalie was asking about grade 8. So grade 8, you're going to do, remember, 3 disciplines, which we just looked at all of them: physical, life, tech, and earth and space. So you're going to choose 3 of those. And then each of those has a core idea. And then at the very beginning, how I talked about the core idea had 3, 3, 3. So you are correct. There would be 9 different pieces of evidence with 3 different practices for each of those core ideas. It's okay if you use the same practice in different disciplines. So if practice 3, your student is getting very good at, and you want to use it in a different discipline, with that new entry point, that's fine. Think about ways that you can expand their horizons a little bit and try different things. You don't have to give us the work if it goes terribly wrong, but just kind of exposing them to some of those different practices is nice. You have my email. You have all the resources that you need available to you. So please, please use them and get started. I can't emphasize that enough. So I'm going to go off camera. I will wait a few minutes if people have questions, but I think we've covered everything that we could cover today. I thank you again for your time, for your patience, and I just wish you a very productive school year.